Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure the distance from the invert of the pipe to where we want the bottom of the snout to sit. And we call that the insertion depth. We're going to be installing an 18R snout today over a 12-inch pipe. We would want the insertion depth to be at least 6 inches or half the pipe diameter, but more is better. So we're going to set the insertion depth today at 12 inches beneath the invert of the pipe. So we mark 12 inches beneath the insert of the pipe. We'll check fit. Recommend removing the access port so you can see your relationship to the pipe as well. Okay, everything looks good. So now what we'll do is we'll take the snout out of the structure and we will drill the holes into the structure, into the snout flange that then we'll use as pilot holes to drill into the structure itself. We're going to space the 6 bolts for the 18R equally around the perimeter of the snout. So today we're going to be using 3/8-inch diameter bolts. I'm going to use a 13/32 drill bit, and we're going to draw 6 holes equally spaced around the perimeter of the snout. First thing we're going to do is we're going to mark the locations. For R series snouts, for round structures, depending on how tight the flange is curved against the main body of the snout, you may want to use a pilot hole, or you may also choose to drill the hole from the back side. Those are 2 options. Today, I'm just going to drill an 1/8-inch pilot hole before I use my 13/32 bit. When you're drilling fiberglass, it helps to have a very sharp drill bit. Okay, now since our holes are marked, we can re-drill through the other side with the larger drill bit. Now we're going to drill the holes from the backside where we just used the smaller pilot hole, and we're going to use the 13/32 bit to accommodate the 3/8-inch bolt. Okay, now we're going to work on placing the snout into the structure, and we're going to use the holes that we just drilled as a template for the holes that we're going to use to mount the snout to the structure wall. One of the things that we like to do is to mark where the center line is of the outlet pipe that the snout's going to cover, so you have a reference point. Then there's typically a seam on the snouts that will mark the center point, or you can just you can center it over the anti-siphon vent hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the snout up on where the center line is. We're going to match that up with the bottom, and none of this has to be exact. You just want to have it relatively close. And then what we'll do is we will mark the location of the bolt holes to correspond to where we're going to drill our pilot holes. One of the little installation tricks that we like to use is to use a load jack or a load bar to hold the snout in place when you're ready to mark up where you're going to drill the bolt holes. Another thing that's helpful is to put a level on the flange just to make some fine adjustments to make sure that the snout is level over the structure hole. And that's one easy way to make sure that your installation and your snout flange is level. It's not that important if it's not level, but it's a nice, neat way to do the job. And then the load jack allows you to use your hands to do other things like mark the holes or drill or whatever have you, rather than having to hold the snout against the structural wall. It works even better for bigger snouts that are harder to keep up. So now that we have the snout correctly positioned over the outlet pipe, where the bottom of the snout is about 12 inches beneath the pipe, and it's centered over the center line of the pipe, we're going to mark where we're going to drill our bolt holes. A Sharpie or a yellow grease pencil works well for this application. So one of the things that you want to do before you get your snout installed, obviously, is you want to check your installation kit. An installation kit is going to consist of installation instructions for the size snout that you have. In this case, we're installing an 18-inch snout. It's going to have the gasket with a pressure-sensitive adhesive on the back. It's going to have your anti-siphon vent. It's also going to have your anti-siphon vent kit, which consists of a female adapter, some gaskets, and a piece of a 12-inch length of pipe and an elbow. And we'll install the anti-siphon vent right before we put the snout on the structure wall. The other thing that's important, of course, is your bolts and lag shields. Make sure that you have all of those before you begin your installation. So it's a really good idea to kind of inventory the kit, make sure you have everything you need for the snout that you're ready to install. Sometimes it's a good idea to use a smaller pilot drill before you use your big hole. So we're going to use an 1/8-inch bit for a pilot. And then we're going to go back and use the full-size bit to complete drilling the holes.
When installing the tamp-in anchor, make sure that the cone section with the narrow end facing out is inserted first. Then the sleeve is placed over the cone and tamped in place.
All right, so now we tighten down the bolts. You don't have to make it overly tight, but a nice snug fit is all you should need to make sure that the part stays firmly mounted against the structural wall. Sometimes when you're working on a part where the flanges are curved back, a shorter socket or an open end wrench may be necessary. Okay, great. The last thing that we're going to do, now that our snout is firmly mounted to the structural wall, is install the anti-siphon vent, and then we'll put the access port back in and we'll be ready to go. So the anti-siphon vent comes with 2 rubber gaskets and a nut. One side of the one gasket goes on the top of the female adapter, and that's the threaded piece that you'll see. That goes into the hole. Next comes the other rubber gasket, and then we'll use the nut in the bottom to keep everything in place. Again, you don't really need to use PVC cement on any of this stuff, but you can if you'd like. Okay, so now that's firmly in place. This anti-siphon vent can be cut to whatever length. It comes standard with a foot of pipe. In this case, if this were actually the top of the structure and there was going to be a frame over top of it, we would cut this down. As long as the elbow can sit on top of the anti-siphon vent adapter, that's really all you need. So a little spool piece is all that's required. But if you have the room, you might as well use the full 12 inches. Make sure that's seated firmly. Give it another twist. And then we'll reinstall the access cover. Make sure that's firmly seated. And there you have a properly installed snout. Now we're going to install the Bioskirt. All of our parts come with an installation kit, and that's true of the Bioskirt as well. So what we need to install the Bioskirt are clips that go in the bolts that we're going to clip the restraints to. You get the elastic restraint. We always provide a little bit more than you need. And then you have plastic clips that fit to the restraint elastic and also to the grommets in the Bioskirt. So we're going to go ahead and fit that up. So now that we have our elastic cut to size, we want to fit the other hook. And a good way to get this elastic through is just to push it through with a screwdriver, and that way you can get it through the other side and up through the clip. So then you secure it in here, and that will hold the bioskirt to the grommet. And then we just basically repeat for the other side. Then the last thing we do is we check for fit. These clips are adjustable, and you can cinch them up and cleat them off. And that's pretty much all there is to installing a bioskirt. And it sits there and it'll float in the water, and it'll intercept the oil that's in your stormwater before it goes out the pipe. So that's the installation of a bioskirt. We're going to begin the installation of the turbo plate. The first thing that we want to do is, this is the inlet turbo plate, is we want to position it adjacent to the incoming pipe. And we want to draw a level line on which the turbo plate is going to be mounted. So get your level and find a level line. Different things work for different substances, but these wax pencils work pretty well. Okay. Hard to see, but it's right there. And then we're going to mount the top of our inlet plate a half a pipe diameter above the top of the pipe, which in this case it's a 12-inch pipe. So we're going to set the top of the plate 12 inches above, or excuse me, 6 inches above the inlet pipe. So we have our level line drawn, and now we're going to mark 12 inches from the top, which is where we're going to mark our plate. So we have our level line. We've drawn it plumb. We have our 12-inch mark. Okay, so the top of the plate will be set at that point, and will be plumb to this vertical line. Okay, so we're going to mount the inlet plate. These plates are heavy, so it's typically a two-man job. So we're going to hoist it up, grab it on here, and then we marked the top of our plate earlier. So we're going to hold that in position and along the plumb line, and we're going to mark the holes to drill. Now, I find the best thing to do, okay, we can put it down now. Okay, we're going to put the first bolt in, and we're going to allow this bolt to kind of act as a hanger for the others. Now we're going to mark the center points of the rest of our holes. Okay, make sure that we're on the plumb line. Yep. Again, marking the center point. Now we'll take it off the wall. Using that first bolt as a hanger makes accurate marking for the center line for the other plates a lot easier. So now we're going to place the remaining 3 bolts into the turbo plate. And now we'll trial fit the plate onto the structure wall. We're in. Okay, great. So the holes line up, and then we'll tighten on the other side. So now the next step is to mount the side plates. Just as we did with the solid inlet plate, we drew a plumb line on the side of the structure, and then from that plumb line we drew a vertical mark that will indicate where the top of the plate goes. And again, this is definitely a two-person job. So we're going to mark the first hole, and then we're going to use that first hole to secure the plate for the rest of the drill holes. Perfect. All right, now we're going to use a pilot drill. First thing we're going to do is drill a pilot hole. Great. And now we're going to install the last, do the last part of the installation, which is ratcheting down the plates and tightening up the 3/8 inch stainless steel bolts.
Thank you for your interest in BMP and our line of innovative, cost-effective stormwater quality products. We hope you found this installation video helpful. Please feel free to contact us with questions at engineering@bmpinc.com or by calling 800-504-8008 or 888-434-0277 and ask for application engineering for installation help or any technical support. Thanks again for choosing Best Management Products as your stormwater quality provider.